Well, I don't look at any model, governmental model, political model, or what have you. I don't look at any of those models as either good or bad. I don't care what you call it. You can call it anything you like, democracy or dictatorship, monarchy or parliamentarian, republic or federation, authoritarian or libertarian. It's all the same to me. It makes no difference whatsoever in terms of the way that I look at it, because I don't look at your models or what you call them. I don't look at your labels. I don't look at your political theories. I'm interested only in outcomes. That's all I'm interested in, is the outcomes. And if you're not interested only in outcomes, then they're going to have you living in miserable outcomes, but cheering for the fact that this misery that you're living in was at least arrived at democratically. I think that's foolishness. For myself personally, I'm only concerned with the quality of people's lives, with the cost of their living, with the opportunities that they have, with the mobility that they have, with the security and the stability that they have, and the safety that they have, the safety and the protections that they have under the law, and the cohesion and the relative harmony of the society that they live in. This is what I'm concerned about. Like I said, social outcomes. And I'm concerned about their freedom, freedom from fear, and freedom from exploitation, and freedom from dispossession. I'm interested in if the weak are protected from the strong. I care about social outcomes, economic outcomes. And if you can achieve net positive conditions for your society, net positive conditions for your society, then I say that is a successful system, no matter what the model is, no matter what the label is. I don't believe in capitalism or communism or socialism or Marxism or libertarianism or what have you. Any of those philosophies, any of those ideas, any of those theories. I believe in outcome-ism. And if you start to look at things that way, then I think you'll find that all of these labels are in fact only put in front of you, in front of your face, precisely to prevent you from ever looking at the outcomes that any of these models ever achieve in the real world. They want you to deprioritize your real world interests, your real world concerns, in favor of some abstract philosophical political principles that they say you should believe in, even if everyone else who ever said that they believe in those same philosophical and political principles, even if those same people are also the same ones who are failing to make your life any better in the real world. They're the same ones, usually, in fact, who are actually actively making your life more miserable. Believing in democracy isn't going to help you pay your rent. Believing in democracy isn't going to help you pay your mortgage. When you go to the grocery store, you can't pay for your food by scanning your voter ID card at the checkout counter. Be serious. When you can't afford to go to the doctor or you can't buy medicine, you can't have the costs waived by telling them how much you believe in the American Constitution. No, give me a house to live in. Give me food to eat. Give me medicine when I'm sick. Give me quality education for my children. Give me safe streets to walk on without getting shot or getting robbed or getting assaulted. Give me a way to earn an income that doesn't humiliate me and that doesn't leave me completely numb and mentally and physically drained at the end of the day to the point where I can't even interact with my own family. Give me enough financial and social latitude in the society to where I can explore my own personal interests, I can explore my own personal talents and my intellectual pursuits. Let me be able to pursue those things without it damaging me economically. And let me know that if, Allah forbid, if catastrophe strikes me and my family, my society isn't going to throw me in the gutter, but my society is going to actually give me the support that I need just to be able to get through that hard patch. Because you and I both know that when you see those homeless people on the streets, that's your society letting you know exactly how easy it is for them to cast you aside. Just how easy it is for them to cast you aside. No matter how long you've been paying into the system. You might have been paying into the system for decades. No, we all know what a decent, civilized, humane society is supposed to look like. We know what it's supposed to look like, even if we've only ever seen it in our imagination. And if your model can establish and sustain a society like that without depending upon violence against others or violence against their own people, and without depending upon extraction of others' resources, then who am I to criticize your model? Wallahi, anyone who defends a model that cannot or will not deliver a basic, decent life for its citizens, well, that person is a fool. And anyone who attacks a model that does deliver these things for their citizens, then you're an even bigger fool. And most likely you're living in a system that treats you exactly like a fool. And most likely you're living in a system that does everything that it possibly can to keep you foolish. And most likely, again, that's probably the main thing, if not the only thing, that your system is actually even delivering to you at all in terms of outcomes. meaning they're delivering you negative outcomes, negative conditions, but they're making you too dumb to see it. So yes, don't talk to me about your models. Don't talk to me about your ideologies. Don't talk to me about your parties and your theories and whatnot. Talk to me about outcomes. If you want to sell me on your political theories and everything that your model promises it can do, but has never actually delivered in the real world, that's so 20th century, honestly. That's so 20th century. We're not about that kind of nonsense anymore. Not in 2025. I mean, you talked a good game for a long time, America, the West. You talked a good game for a long time, and we were fooled by your words for a very long time, for far too long. We were blinded by your words. Yes, we were. We were blinded by your words, and to the extent that we actually overlooked your deeds. Because your talk was so pretty and so beautiful that you had us completely starstruck for many, many years, for decades, in fact. You could actually convince us, you would stick a knife in our rib cage and have us actually convinced that it was only your knife that was keeping us standing up. Like you would impale us on a spike and make us think that that spike that we were impaled upon was the only thing holding us up. That's how good you were with your words. That's how good you were with your propaganda. You love-bombed the whole global South right alongside your real bombs. And many of us chose to overlook the devastation. We chose to overlook the devastation and believe in your promises about development. Just like a con man. You took and took and took and took, and you extracted our wealth, you extracted our resources and our labor and our sovereignty and our independence. And we kept believing that we're going to get something back in return. We're going to get something more valuable back in return if we give you all of that. We're going to get democracy. We're going to get development. We're going to get freedom. We're going to get liberty. You sold us all of these abstractions and made them sound so wonderful that we actually thought it was going to be better than what we had before. Than what we had before you took it from us. You understand? Never mind that what we had was obviously so much better than what you had that you had to come all the way over to our lands to take it from us. You understand? We never stopped to ask that question. We never stopped to ask if what they have is so good over there, then why are they over here taking our stuff? I mean, if all you need is democracy, if all you need is liberty, if all you need is freedom, if that's all you need, then why do you also need our sugar? Why do you also need our wheat, our cocoa, our minerals, our oil, our gas, our gold, our diamonds, our rubber, our lumber? Why can't you just stay over there where you came from with all of your wonderful virtues and with your American way and whatnot, if it's so wonderful? Because the truth of the matter is that those virtues, so-called, were never the engine of your vehicle. They were just the paint job. The slogans and the labels and the models were never meant to describe reality. They were always meant to conceal reality or to distract or obfuscate from reality. They keep trying to have you focused on these abstractions, these abstract principles, so that you stay in denial about the outcomes that you're living in. They didn't come to the global South because they loved freedom and they wanted to spread freedom. No, everyone knows that. They came because they loved our resources. They came because they loved our inputs. They came because they loved our stuff. In fact, they loved our stuff so much that they took our freedom to get it. And that's how little they love the principle of freedom. That's because your whole model, whatever label you attach to it, your whole model was in fact built just to be a machine that runs on other people's land, other people's labor, other people's debt, other people's blood, other people's exploitation, other people's futures. And that machine takes other people's freedom, and it takes other people's liberty, and it takes other people's safety. And this is why I keep telling you, you need to stop being hypnotized by this word democracy as if it's some kind of a magical spell. No, stop being fooled when they talk about human rights, for example. All of these things that they like to preach about. This is just another way of calling our societies uncivilized and primitive. That's all they're doing. Like we need Westerners, we need Europeans, we need Americans to come over and teach us about human rights. That's the same old colonial pretext. It's the same old colonial sales pitch. It's the white man's burden for the 21st century. Nobody violated our rights more than you did. What are you talking about? All of our societies care about our own people. We care about our own people. Your whole so-called civilization was built on violating the rights of human beings, our people and your own people. And now you think that we're supposed to listen to you telling us about what our rights are? And how to protect our rights? No, we know very well, we know perfectly well how to protect our human rights, and it starts with us keeping as far away as possible from you. Because look, whenever they come to a place, whenever they land in a place, what do? The first thing they do is build a pipeline of dependency. They grab the ports, they grab the banks, the trade routes, the currency arrangements, the legal regime, the media ecosystem, the NGO ecosystem, the aid ecosystem, and they call that institution building. They call it nation building, right? That's what they call it. They call it development. Imagine, we were built up before you got here. We were built up, we were developed before you came to destroy everything. You come and you demolish everything, and then you set up all of these tools of extraction, and you say that you're helping us develop. And what does it develop? It develops our dependency, and it develops your access. It develops your ownership of our land and our resources. It develops your ability to turn our country on and off like a light switch. That's why they can scream about democracy. They can preach about democracy, while at the same time, we all know that they're perfectly happy backing dictators as long as that dictator is their dictator, is a loyal dictator, loyal to them. Because it was never about the label. It was never about the model. It was always about outcomes for them, positive outcomes for them, and zero outcomes for us. And the slickest trick in the game that they got you to believe in was that they trained you to argue about these models, while they impose conditions on you that they tell you that their models are going to save you from. They trained you to fight each other over these political theories, over these parties, over these ideologies and what have you, while they own the money system. They trained you to scream at each other and to fight each other over left and right, over conservative or liberal. They want you to fight about those things while they write the trade rules. They trained you to talk about so-called values while they're busy taking the minerals out of the ground and shipping them away. That's what they value. They trained you to think that you're free because you get to insult the president of the United States. You can insult your politicians. You can't do that anywhere else in the world. Meanwhile, you can't afford your rent. You can't afford a family. You can't afford a doctor. You can't afford to be sick. You can't afford to even get old. And you have absolutely no recourse whatsoever to challenge any of that. But you get to mock Trump. You can make fun of Biden, so you must be free. Hallelujah. I mean, sure, you can also make jokes. Yes, you can also make jokes about the private sector elites. You can. The ones who rule you, who truly rule you, you're allowed to make fun of them too. But look at the nature of the jokes that you hear about the private sector elites. The jokes are always about how powerful they are, how rich they are, how much they control everything, how much impunity they have. Those aren't jokes, not really. Those are statements just to reinforce their authority, reinforces their impunity. What kind of freedom is it when the basic necessities of life are held hostage by people that you can't even vote out, that you can't even sue, you can't even boycott them effectively, you can't outbid them and you can't outlast them? What kind of freedom is it when your own society can't feed itself, can't power itself, can't secure itself, can't educate itself, can't treat itself, and can't afford to live without becoming a permanent debt slave? So no, when I hear Westerners talking about we have a democracy, I say, okay, hooray for you, but what are the outcomes? Show me the outcomes. Why is homelessness so normal in your country? Why is medical bankruptcy so normal in your country? Why are so many people just one layoff away from complete financial collapse? Why is the cost of living so soul crushing? Why are communities, all of your communities, so atomized, your family so fractured and broken? Why is there this loneliness epidemic? Why is everyone drowning in antidepressants and fentanyl and alcohol and porn and doom scrolling? And then you want to turn around and export this model? You want to export this model to the rest of the world? No, no, thank you. We don't need any of your psychologically transmitted diseases, any of your politically transmitted diseases. You probably think that I'm trying to insult you, like I'm the one who did this to you. You feel insulted to be told about how insulted you have been by your own political system and economic system. I'm saying this because it's the first step of waking up. It's the first step of realizing that the thing you were taught to support, the thing you were taught to defend and to believe in, never delivers for you. And it was never designed to deliver for you. Because the West, at the top, doesn't even have a political model. That's the truth. It has a Machiavellian management system. That's all it has. It has a system of control by any means. And it can wear whatever costume it wants depending upon the audience. Sometimes it's going to wear the election costume. Sometimes it's going to dress up in a court robe. Sometimes it's going to wear the language of civil rights. Sometimes the language of humanitarian relief, humanitarian concerns. Sometimes it's going to wear the language of feminism and women's rights and what have you. Sometimes it wears the uniform of counterterrorism. Sometimes it wears Judeo-Christian values and so forth. I said the costume changes depending upon the audience, depending upon the target audience. But the outcome is consistent. The outcome is consistent. What's the outcome? The powerful remain completely insulated and immune, and the public remains completely subjugated and distracted. Democracy. That's your outcome. That's the outcome of your system, of your model. So yes, the truth of the matter is we're not listening to you anymore. We're looking at what you do. We're looking at the outcomes of what you do. We look at what you do and what you've done, and we're counting the cost. We're looking at your outcomes, both in our countries and in your own country. Alhamdulillah, Islam teaches us that we're supposed to look at your deeds. We're supposed to look at your actions and judge you upon that basis. And if your words align with your actions, then all well and good. But if they do not align, and they never have aligned, then we understand that the only way that we can ever possibly discern the truth about you is by watching what you do, and not at all by listening to what you say. And my advice to the people over there, to the average American and the average Westerner, is to do the same. Approach things the same way. Your democracy, your liberty, your capitalism, your rights, your liberalism, your pluralism, your equality, your individualism and what have you. These are all just parade floats that are mounted on the backs of tanks that have been running over everybody. They've been running over everyone for years and years and for decade after decade after decade. But the great charade is over now. It's over. You understand that genuinely advanced, genuinely sophisticated, ancient and profound civilizations in this world have been deferring to the West and deferring to America. And we gave you the microphone for a long time, and we let you talk. And when we let you talk, all this time, the collective IQ of the human race has been qualitatively lowered as a result. And I mean literally, I'm not even joking. Not just in America, not just in the West. No, I wish it was, but it's not. Everywhere that you went, everywhere that you went, everywhere that you had influence, you sabotaged the minds of the people. You sabotaged the intelligence of the people, the psyches of the people. Because when you colonized, your hegemony descended on the world, on the lands that you colonized, like a cloud of confusion that was so thick, it left most of us with zero visibility. That's mental and intellectual and psychological colonization. Because look, when you listen to stupid all day long, your brain recalibrates to lower standards. Your intellectual muscles atrophy. Because when a people are forced to perform ignorance and stupidity just in order to survive, when your schools and your courts and your media and your development plans and your entire political imagination must be translated into the language of the occupier, then the smartest minds in your country, the smartest minds in your nation spend their whole lives negotiating nothing but nonsense. You know how it feels. I know you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You take civilizations like the Islamic civilization that used to explore physics, metaphysics, law, governance, ethics, mathematics, science, architecture, what it means to have a good life, what's the purpose of life, and so forth. And you reduce those people, you reduce that civilization to nothing but cheap labor. Begging for recognition, pleading for aid, literally writing grant proposals just so that they can get permission to drink their own water. Yes, in Haiti you did that. In Kenya, in Nigeria, and in Bolivia you did that. Our countries and our governments have been in a hostage situation, and our captor can only speak in monosyllables. It degrades your mind. Islamic civilization wasn't waiting for Europeans to come over and teach us anything. We didn't need you to teach us anything, not from human rights to hygiene. We were light years ahead of you. Our civilization carries a moral architecture embedded in it that makes rulers accountable to the law, makes rulers accountable to God. And we built institutions that outlived whole dynasties. The Bayt al-Hikmah in Baghdad, that existed because knowledge, pursuit of knowledge, was treated like an obligation for even every rank and file person in the country, in the land, in the empire. Andalusia became what we made it because refinement and because scholarship and because public order and decency and sophistication are our civilizational habits. But it's not just us. I don't say that the Muslims were the only people in the world who ever built rich and enriching civilizations. No, there have been many. And we give them their due. We give them credit where credit is due. But do you think that the Chinese were nothing until Nixon started dealing with them in the 70s? China didn't just wake up one day and discover, oh, we have a history after all. No, they had very advanced statecraft, bureaucracy, engineering, philosophy, production, science, long-range strategy. They were performing long-range strategy while Europe was still trying to decide whether or not bathing caused disease. Africa didn't begin at the moment when Portuguese ships showed up. No, Africa had empires. They had trade corridors. They had scholarship. They had metallurgy. They had law. They had cities. They had systems of governance. They had systems of governance that the Europeans later pretended never existed. Because if you admit the humanity and the sophistication and the advancement of the people that you rob, then you have to face what a heinous criminal you are. What a heinous criminal you are for robbing them. Now, you didn't attack the global south because you thought that the people and that the civilizations in the global south were inferior to yours. You attacked them so that your inferior so-called civilization could claim superiority just by being able to gloat over the carnage and the debris that you caused from the people and the civilizations that were better than you. The people that you vanquished, not because you were superior, but because you were more savage. And think about the Americas, so-called Latin America. They had entire civilizations that already had calendars, had advanced agriculture, had medicine, had architecture, incredible architectural feats. They had governance. Then Europe arrives carrying their smallpox and their guns and their theology of entitlement. They turned the whole continent into a quarry. And then they told the survivors centuries later that they lacked any institutional maturity. That's like an arsonist setting fire to your house and then making fun of you because you're homeless. Like I said, this so-called Western civilization has been monopolizing the spotlight and the microphone on the global stage for far too long. And while they're standing in the spotlight, they're keeping their crimes in the shadows. And you didn't do all of that through your superior morality, not at all. And certainly not through your superior social or economic outcomes. You didn't do it through superior discipline. You did it through force. You did it through force that was multiplied by industry, industry multiplied by extraction, and extraction multiplied by a global narrative that called your robbery and your pillage a civilizing mission. You did it through gunboats and unequal treaties that you didn't even keep. You did it through the opium wars. Yes, literally going to war so that you can force drugs onto an entire nation just because they won't buy enough of your products. This is how you do. You did it through the Congo's blood-soaked rubber, where hands were cut off of the native people, of the indigenous people, just so that you could meet your quotas. And then later in that same century, Europe wants to publish pamphlets about African savagery. And you did it through slavery. We know, everyone knows you did it through slavery. Industrial modernity was financed on the stolen bodies and stolen labor of African people. You don't get to steal the work of millions of people and build your ports and build your banks and build your factories and build your White House on the back of that theft and then start delivering sermons about the great Western American values of hard work and merit. Who do you think you're fooling? Coups, debt traps, structural adjustment reforms, sanctions, rule-based order, the IMF, your think tanks that don't think about anything except how to tank our countries. You had our good leaders assassinated, and you had your collaborators installed. You had them installed, you had them demonized after they ceased being useful, and then you had them removed and replaced. Like I said, the most insulting part of all of this is your endless preaching, your endless posturing. You've spent over 2 centuries turning the whole world into your torture chamber, and then you show up with a clipboard asking us why we have trauma responses. You divided societies and you'd arm both sides, fund the conflicts, profit from the reconstruction, and then you'd send Amnesty International, you'd send your Human Rights Watch over to our countries that you had just devastated and have your journalists or your human rights reporters expressed their horror at all of the atrocities that you yourselves had engineered. So yes, we're not listening to you anymore. We're not listening to you anymore. We're looking at outcomes. And the outcomes that you have caused would indict you in your own court under your own so-called rule of law and with your own evidence. Yes, the evidence is right there in your country. You don't forget about our countries. Forget about what you did in our countries. We're going to be fine. But the evidence of your wrongdoing is right there on your own streets. Like I say, look at your cities. Look at the loneliness of your people. Look at the addiction. Look at the ideological breakdowns where you've got people who can't agree on what a man is, what a woman is, what a child is, what duty is, what the future is supposed to look like, what life is even for. Look at the debt. Look at the collapsing trust in your institutions. Look at the violence of your politics. Look at the grotesque wealth concentration in your society. Look at the way that your working classes are treated like disposable objects, disposable parts in a machine. And then they're told to be grateful because they have freedom, because they have democracy. This is satire. This isn't civilization. That's why we're taking back the microphone. Because the world is done with being preached to by criminals, and we're done being managed by a society that cannot even manage itself. Look, the global economic transition, this is not just a slogan. This is a true shifting terrain. You're talking about supply chains, energy corridors, payment systems, development banks, industrial planning, South-South trade. All of this is blooming. These are world-changing mechanisms. These are the world-changing mechanisms that move history. While Western media is busy manufacturing fake drama to keep you distracted, keep you occupied, keep you entertained, other powers in the world are busy building ports and rail and infrastructure, refining capacity, food security, currency arrangements. BRICS signifies that the world no longer accepts for there to be just one center of power. It's a signal that alternatives are being tested, and those alternatives are going to be institutionalized and expanded across the world. It's a signal that the old world order, which depended on everyone needing access to Western capital and Western approval, they're losing their monopoly. What's more, your own elites are jumping ship. Your own private sector elites are jumping ship. They ran that Titanic head on into the iceberg, and now they're scattering for the lifeboats. And all the rest of you in the lower decks, you were dreaming that maybe one day you'd be able to be in the dining hall with all the fancy people, but in fact, you're just going to go down with the ship. That's the outcome that they steered you into. And now America, yes, America is withdrawing from direct international management. They're withdrawing. They're not doing it out of humility. They're doing it out of cost, out of fatigue, out of internal fracture, out of strategic recalibration. You can call it pivoting. You can call it retrenchment. You can call it whatever you like, but it's happening. This is the reality. America is losing its bandwidth. Their ability is shrinking. Their ability to play the global judge, jury, and executioner is shrinking. They're going to lose that position. Because that's what happens when you build your empire on consumption, on debt, on oppression, and then upon nothing but narrative. Eventually the bill comes due, and you're going to have to pay for it, and you're not going to be able to talk your way out of paying for it. So what does it look like when the adults return to the room, when the grown-ups come to the stage and take the microphone? Well, it's very simple. We're talking about civilizational memory waking up. We're talking about 2 billion Muslims in the world remembering that Islam doesn't need Western validation. It doesn't need Western validation or approval to be true, to be beautiful, and to be workable. We're talking about Africans asserting that their future does not require begging for the crumbs of their own extracted wealth, and who understand that resources plus strategy plus unity equals victory. Future looks like Ibrahim Traore. It looks like China doing what ancient civilizations do, planning in decades, not in election cycles, investing in capacity, fortifying themselves, making themselves stronger. And it looks like Latin America understanding that sovereignty means control of your own commodities, your own industry, your own finance, and your own security. And yes, it also means asserting in a loud voice that there's a huge chunk of your territory that's occupied right now by aliens and immigrants and colonizers who dare to call you illegal. Look, human beings are human beings. I'm not saying otherwise. There are brilliant minds in the West. There are people who want to be decent in the West. There are people who want to be moral in the West, I'm sure of it. And there are genuine achievements in science and engineering and technology and so forth in the West, yes. We'll give them that, even though all of those were only pursued and they were only funded for violent colonizer purposes, purposes of oppression and purposes of domination. That's a fact. They are achievements nonetheless. And the achievements that they have accomplished, civilized people will be able to utilize those accomplishments and that technology and those advancements in civilized ways. But the issue is the deceitful civilizational self-description. The issue is the claim that you make to moral leadership, the demand to be treated like you're a teacher when you're behaving like a predator. It's absolutely sadistic. It's absolutely sadistic. You know, you demand the right to rape and pillage, and then you impose an obligation upon your victims that they have to love you and they have to respect you. It's sick. The issue is your values, which you always marketed as if they're universal, even though you universally contradicted them. You made sure that your own rights expanded at home, but were denied to everyone else abroad. Your law was only ever sacred when it protected your interests, but it was completely inapplicable when it came to your victims. So the change now is not a birth of a new utopia. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about the end of a dystopia. That pompous American speaker is being escorted away from the podium, not by one big dramatic event, not by some cataclysmic event, not by some revolution, but by 1,000 mature, strategic decisions by civilized people, by trade routes, by new institutions, new partnerships, new manufacturing, new security arrangements, new cultural confidence, new refusal to internalize Western propaganda campaigns anymore, and a new refusal to accept any Western definitions and any Western epistemology and your theories and your parties and your models. And so I say to the people in the West, the rank and file, the ordinary people, the truth is you have a choice in this moment. You do have a choice. Like I've said many times, you can choose to cling to the fantasy that you are the center of the world, but then you're just going to become a bitter spectator, watching history move on without you and leave you behind. Or you can do something more dignified. You can make the more dignified choice and start honestly looking at your own real world outcomes, the real world outcomes of your so-called models and system. Tell the truth about your system and stop letting your ruling class use you as human shields for their crimes. Because that's what you do. Like when you say, but there are good people in the West. Be nice, Brother Shahid. That's just you offering yourself as a human shield for the wrongdoers, just so that you can try to deflect justified criticism and condemnation that is being expressed by literally 85% of the people on this earth. Because the world is moving on. The world is waking up and the world is moving on. The world is done, like I say. We're done being talked down to by societies that cannot even keep their own people safe, their own people whole, and their own people sane. This isn't about revenge, it's consequences. This isn't hatred, it's justice. It's not anti-Western, it's pro-ourselves. And the great irony, subhanallah, is that the West spent centuries acting as though they were the sole authors of history, only to end up producing a world in which history can no longer be monopolized by any one author. So yes, we're not listening anymore. We're not listening anymore. We're building. We're busy. We're remembering. We're aligning ourselves with the civilizational instincts that we have. And we're measuring outcomes and we're counting costs. And we're judging by deeds and deeds alone. The era of listening to the psychopath's sermon is ending. And the era of adult conversation is returning. And that means that we have to stop arguing about all these Western labels, all these Western theories and models, and start working on our own conditions. And once you do that, then you start to understand what the real struggle is. It's not about monarchy versus republic. It's not about capitalism versus socialism. It's not left versus right. It's dignity versus dependence. It's self-sufficiency versus being a slave. It's whether you own your life or not, your own life, or whether somebody else owns all of the conditions that are going to determine whether your life is even going to be livable or not. So yes, keep your pretty words, keep your unrealistic ideological models, keep your party loyalties and what have you. Just show me the outcomes. Show me protection for the weak. Show me food for the hungry. Show me medicine for the sick. Show me a society that doesn't throw people away. Show me a system where your children have a future other than just being debt slaves or living as a drone, working as a drone for someone else's profit. And then after that, after you have achieved that for yourself and for your people and your nation and your society, well, then we can start talking about what you want to call it.